Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC Fight Night London Tom Aspinall versus Marcin Tybura, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction, starting off with the first fight of the night, Jafel Filho versus Daniel Barez. Daniel Barez making his UFC debut, coming in on a 4-fight win streak, all 4 wins via finish, but not against the best competition. You look at their records, the last guy he beat was 14-12, the guy before that 6-9, before that 7-9, before that 10-9, and then his last loss was roughly 2 years ago on Dana White's Contender Series, lost the split decision, kind of gassed out in this fight, started to get tired, lost the third round, and that's really what cost him the fight. You look at Filho, he's coming off a loss in his UFC debut, but it was against Muhammad Mokaev. What a tough debut to get for Filho against Mokaev, who is considered a future prospect in the flyweight division. A lot of people think he'll be a future contender, potentially even a future title holder. I mean, that's a bit overrating him, but you get my point. Very tough fight for his UFC debut. And he had a bright spot. In the third round, he almost finished Mokaev with a knee bar. Had it in, it was deep, it was tight. Hyperextended the knee, but Mokaev just toughed it out and refused to tap. In this matchup, Filho just basically got out-grappled. But Mokaev, we know how good his grappling is. And for Filho not to get submitted in this fight and even almost have a submission of his own was very impressive. In terms of how I think this fight plays out, I think this is a very competitive striker matchup. Both guys are decently well-rounded, but I think both guys rely on their striking. And I think Barez has more power. He has a power advantage. 13 of his 16 wins come via finish. But he does tend to slow down. He throws heavy shots and big combinations, and he does tend to slow down. Both guys have very good kicks. Filho is a very good kicker. Fast kicks, good body kicks, good leg kicks. Has questionable takedown defense, but can we really say questionable takedown defense when it's against Mokaev? You know, he's a very good grappler. But for my prediction, I am going with Filho via decision, 29-28 decision. I think this is going to be a competitive fight. I think both guys are going to want to strike. And I just think Filho is younger, faster, and has a little bit more technical striking. I mean, 34 years old for Barez. I just don't trust him at 34 years old in the flyweight division. I think Filho will be able to outstrike him. I think maybe Filho gets rocked in the first round, loses the first round. Barez throws some heavy combinations very fast, but I think then he starts to slow down, and I think Filho gets out ahead with some of his kicks and lands better combinations, and he's still, you know, fresh. He was fresh in the Mokaev third round, even though he had been attempting to defend takedowns and attempting to scramble up all fight. So I think Filho, just younger, faster, has a better gas tank. I think Filho gets it done, 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card, Brasil versus Shauna Bannon. Shauna Bannon, 5-0, making her UFC debut. Let me read her last few opponents' records. And I know she's inexperienced herself, but 6-4, 1-2, 3-0, 3-0, and 1-1. So the level of opposition she's fighting is horrible. She's 29 years old, so she's still very young. You look at Brasil, she's coming in on a loss against Diakiese Gomes, which isn't a horrible loss. Now, you look what Gomes just did to Hauergy, brutally finished her. So it's not horrible to get finished by Gomes in her last fight. And Brasil, I think, even hurt Gomes early in that fight, if I'm not mistaken. The fight before that, she fought on Dana White's Contender Series, got a win, head kick KO. Looked good in this fight, striking looked fluid, and it got a finish, which is very rare for, you know, the women's strawweight division. Bannon's going to want to come out and grapple. I watched some of her fights. She likes to grapple. Her striking is atrocious. It is so bad. It is horrible. She just wants to get a takedown, end up on top. She doesn't even have like ferocious ground and pound. Her last few fights, her last 3 fights, she's won all via decision. And it's not like she's this crazy good offensive grappler. So I'm going Brasil, second round TKO. I just think Bannon's striking is so bad, and I don't think her grappling is good enough to have Brasil kind of worrying about throwing or striking and worrying about letting her hands go, because I don't think Bannon's all that good, and I think Brasil is going to light her up on the feet. I think she's going to be a little tentative early, shrugging off some takedowns, and that's why in the second round, I'm going via TKO. I think early in the fight, she's going to be worried a little bit, but then once she realizes, oh, this girl's slow, this girl doesn't have the best takedown ability, I think then she really starts to let her strikes go. I'm going to say in the second round, she catches her with a head kick and finishes her via ground and pound in the second round. I'm going Brasil. Moving up on the card, Duncan versus Yanal Ashmouz. This is a fun fight. This is a good matchup. I'm looking forward to this matchup. Both guys are decently well-rounded. Chris Duncan on a 3-fight winning streak, won his last fight via split decision, just mixed everything together. It was a close fight. Fight before that was on Dana White's Contender Series. Got to finish there. His last loss was a while ago against Slavoklos Borishev, Vyacheslav Borishev. Not a horrible loss to have, especially considering Borishev has very good striking. But Borishev in the UFC has shown horrible grappling and horrible takedown defense. And honestly, if you book this rematch, this was 2 years ago, I'd probably pick Chris Duncan. And then you have Ashmouz, who's coming off that crazy KO over Sam Patterson. Just clipped him badly with a left hand. It was a late stoppage. Sam Patterson was fighting with the ref afterwards. But if you look back at Ashmouz's previous fights in PFL and CFFC, he's had a lot of fights where he's getting controlled up against the fence. You know, against Ryan Rizko was getting controlled up against the fence, and there's been moments where he's getting taken down. And I think Ashmouz is decently well-rounded. I just think Chris Duncan is better, and Chris Duncan is very defensively sound. And Ashmouz, I think he's going to have to clip him with a big shot and finish him in the first round if he wants to win this fight and get a KO. He's undefeated. I think he loses this fight. I am going Chris Duncan via decision. I just think Ashmouz is going to get controlled too much up against the fence. He's not going to be able to get off those big power shots. I think Duncan is super defensively responsible. And I think also Ashmouz will slow down a bit from the grappling and trying to defend off the grappling. And I think as the fight goes on, it'll get a little bit more dominant for Chris Duncan. So I'm going Chris Duncan via decision, just using his grappling, cage control time. It won't be a pretty fight, but it'll just be pushing him against the fence, knees to the thighs, looking for takedowns, get him down for a second. Ashmouz will use the fence to get back up. But I think Chris Duncan wins a decision. I'm going to say a 30-27 decision win for Chris Duncan using his grappling. Moving up on the card, Ketlen Vieira versus Pannie Kianzad. This is a matchup I'm not looking forward to at all. Ketlen Vieira has some of the least urgency I've ever seen in a fight. She's never really looking to put on volume, and that probably cost her last fight. Her last fight was Raquel Pennington. She lost that matchup split decision. She probably should have won the fight. I thought, honestly, it was a bit of a robbery, but Ketlen Vieira, she puts no pace on her opponent. I mean, even when she's winning fights, she's just kind of content, throwing very limited strikes. She's decently well-rounded. The fight before that, she beat Holly Holm, but all Holly Holm was do in that fight was clinch stall, and honestly, Ketlen Vieira could have very well got screwed in that decision because she only won via split decision. The fight before that, she beat up Miesha Tate. Means absolutely nothing. Miesha Tate was a dead body at that point. And the fight before that, she lost to Yana Santos. But we're getting to 2.5 years ago at that point, so that really doesn't matter. They're both 31 years old. Kianzad hasn't fought in over a year. Her last fight was against Lena Landsberg. She won that fight, but she got rocked badly in that fight by Lena Landsberg. The fight before that, she lost to Raquel Pennington. That was 2 years ago, so she hasn't been super active. Before that, you look at her wins, Alexis Davis, Sijara Eubanks, Betch Kohea, all terrible wins, to be quite honest. And I'm going with Ketlen Vieira via decision. I think she's just a little bit better everywhere. She has no urgency, but I think she's just going to use her grappling, use her clinch, land some good shots in the clinch. I think she has more power on the feet. I think Kianzad is going to want to clinch in this fight, but I just think Vieira is going to be a little bit stronger. And I also think Vieira has better striking. So even if Kianzad wants to clinch up the whole fight, I think Vieira can get out of that position and land some shots on the feet and land the more powerful shots and also get takedowns and get some control time. I'm going Ketlen Vieira via decision. Moving up on the card, Bryan Barberena versus Makhmud Muradov. This is an interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to this fight. I think this will be a fun fight. When is Bryan Barberena ever in a boring fight? Both guys on 2-fight losing streaks. Bryan Barberena, last 2 fights. Last fight, he got submitted by Gunnar Nelson. Quick, easy win for Gunnar Nelson. Fight before that, gets submitted by Rafael Dos Anjos, rear naked choke. Bryan Barberena is 34 years old. He's getting up there. He's been around forever. He's super tough, super durable. Always in an exciting fight. His last win was against Robbie Lawler, where he was actually losing that fight, but just the volume was too much for Robbie Lawler. Muradov in his last fight had a close fight with Caio Borralho. He was able to reverse some positions, control Caio Borralho on the ground a bit, land some decent shots on the feet, but ultimately Borralho was able to get it done basically with his grappling himself. But Muradov's decently well-rounded. He lost to Gerald Meerschaert, but it seems like everyone wants to lose to Gerald Meerschaert, at least over the 2 years ago, year and a half ago. Gerald Meerschaert finished him via submission. Before that, got a win over KO TKO with a KO TKO over Andrew Sanchez. Before that, a win over Trevor Smith. Not the greatest wins for Makhmud Muradov, and he's actually getting up there in age as well. He's 33 years old. But I think Bryan Barberena is slowing down a bit. I think we know his grappling's a bit exposed, and I think Muradov will use his grappling because he's very well-rounded. And I think Muradov will be able to use the grappling to kind of get Barberena thinking about it. And I think Muradov's eventually going to catch him on the feet because Barberena, he knows he's lost his last 2 fights by getting out-grappled and getting submitted. I think Muradov's going to mix that in early, get some takedowns, control time. Maybe Barberena works his way back to his feet. I think eventually Muradov's going to catch him with a big shot in the second round and finish him via TKO. Bryan Barberena, I don't think he's ever been finished by TKO, to be quite honest. I'm not looking at it right now. But he's tough to finish. He's very durable regardless. But I think their laws of percentages, everyone has their day. And 34 years old, on a down streak. Makhmud Muradov, I think, is better than his record indicates. And also, Muradov's a finisher. Of his 25 wins, 20 via finish. So I'm going Makhmud Muradov via second round TKO. Catches him with a big shot on the feet. Finishes him on the ground. Moving up on the card, Mick Parkin versus Jamal Pogues. This is a horrible heavyweight matchup. I'm going to be honest. This is bottom of the barrel heavyweights here. Mick Parkin coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. Won via rear naked choke. The guy Eduardo Neves was actually lighting him up on the feet badly. Hurt him multiple times. Just gassed out like a minute and a half into the fight after lighting him up, kind of showboating a bit. And Mick Parkin just out-grappled him and submitted him in the first round. He's 27 years old, hasn't fought the best competition. You look at fights before that. I mean, the Eduardo guy was 5-0. The fight before that, 6-9, 7-7, 2-3. I mean, horrible opposition. Oh my God, 2 years ago, he fought a guy who was 2-17. 4 fights ago. That's crazy. Why is that guy still fighting? There was a referee stoppage, TKO. Pogues, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. His last fight, he beat Josh Parisian in his butt crack. Beat him via decision, out-grappled him, outstruck him, used his jab. Fight before that, won on Dana White's Contender Series. He's 27 years old as well. Parkin has an inch height and 2-inch reach advantage. But I think Parkin is going to want to grapple in this fight. And he's just too easily hit. And I think Pogues has decent enough grappling he showed in the Josh Parisian fight. And decent enough striking. I'm going to go Pogues via decision. I think he's just going to pump the jab. Pogues seems like he has no finishing ability, so I can't pick Pogues by finish. But Parkin is there to be hit. Pogues has decent enough everything. He's overall just decently well-rounded for the bottom of the barrel heavyweight division. I think you'll see him pumping the jab. I think you'll see Parkin looking for takedowns, unable to find them. And I think Pogues wins a very slow, sluggish, ugly decision. I'm going to go Jamal Pogues, maybe 29-28 decision. Maybe one of the rounds he gets out-grappled because he starts slowing down. But I'm going Jamal Pogues. Moving up on the card, I absolutely love this matchup. Marc Diakiese versus Yoel Alvarez. Yoel Alvarez coming back after that brutal loss by Arman Tsarukyan. I mean, he got brutalized. Once he got cut open in that first round, it seemed like Yoel Alvarez just quit in that fight. I actually picked Alvarez to beat Arman Tsarukyan. Sounds horrible now. What a terrible pick that was. I actually forgot about that. But before that, absolutely mauled Thiago Moises, beat him up badly. Nasty standing elbows, uppercuts, standing TKO. Finished him in his last few fights. Finished via submission. I mean, Yoel Alvarez is a very, very good fighter. 16 of 19 wins by submission. The guy has slick guillotines when people shoot on him. And I think Marc Diakiese in this matchup, I think he's going to be looking to shoot takedowns and looking to out-grapple him. You look at Marc Diakiese's last fight. Lost to Michael Johnson. Wasn't able to get him down. Looked slow on the feet. Got outstruck. Fight before that, Damir Hadzovic out-grappled him, took him down. Just basically, Marc Diakiese was just grappling nonstop. And in the 2 fights before this, Vyacheslav Borishev out-grappled him as well, nonstop shooting takedowns. I think that's what he's going to need to do in this fight because I think Yoel Alvarez is the far superior striker, has nasty power, nasty combinations. And I just think that Diakiese loses his fight because he's going to be getting lit up on the feet. I could see him getting finished on the feet, honestly, badly with strikes. Alvarez took in the time off. He's 30 years old. He's entering his prime. He has a massive height advantage, 5-inch height advantage, and also a 4-inch reach advantage for Yoel Alvarez. But I think ultimately Alvarez's striking sets up the submission because I think Diakiese is going to shoot in on a sloppy takedown, and I'm going Yoel Alvarez first round submission guillotine. He's going to be lighting him up on the feet, backing him up. Diakiese's going to shoot in on a sloppy takedown and immediately get guillotined by Alvarez. The guy is just a submission machine. 16 out of 19 wins via submission. I'm assuming, I haven't checked, I'm assuming primarily guillotine. So I am going Yoel Alvarez first round submission. Moving up on the card, we have Danny Roberts versus Jonny Parsons. I feel like Yoel Alvarez fight should be above this. But Danny Roberts, coming off that loss to JDM in his last fight where he got absolutely beat down. The fight before that, lost to Francisco Trinaldo. He's 36 years old. They got him on the card because they're in London. He's from the UK. I almost said United Kingdom. Who even says that? He's from the UK. He's 36 years old. He has a 5-inch reach advantage and a significant height advantage as well, a 4-inch height advantage. You have Johnny Parsons, coming in. He's won his last 5 fights, but not against the best competition. 12-9, 2 fights ago, 7-4, 10-4. His last fight was on Dana White's Contender Series. Won via split decision, could have arguably lost this matchup, was getting lit up badly and hurt early. And Parson has some good kicks, but he's very hittable and he can be taken down. Danny Roberts is decently well-rounded. He's good in the clinch, has okay striking, has okay power. This is honestly a tough fight to pick. Parsons also has some decent leg kicks as well. For my official prediction, I'm going to go Danny Roberts via decision. I just think he's a little bit better everywhere. And I just think Parsons, he's younger. He's probably a little bit faster, but I think Danny Roberts has more technical striking. I think he's going to be a bigger guy. Johnny Parsons looked very, very small in the fights that I watched of him from Dana White's Contender Series, and he almost lost that fight as well. So I'm going to pick Danny Roberts. I think he's a gritty veteran. I know he's lost his last 2 fights, but there's no shame in losing to JDM, even though JDM didn't look particularly great in his most recent fight. No real shame in losing to Francisco Trinaldo. I got a win over Ramazan Ameev, fight before that, so it's not, this is a tough fight to pick, but I'm going Danny Roberts via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Davey Grant versus Daniel Marcos. Davey Grant's been around forever, 37 years old. This guy is gritty. This guy is always in exciting fights. Did not deserve to win his last fight. What happened in his last fight, in the 3rd round, basically, Rafael Dos Anjos had been winning the fight. Rafael Assunção had been winning the fight, and he started to gas out. And Davey Grant really started to put it on him. And Assunção almost got a takedown, kind of had him in a bad position. There's like 30, 40 seconds left in the round. Davey Grant grabs the cage multiple times while they're still in the takedown position. Doesn't get out of the position. Keith Peterson, I think it was, stopped it. Stood him up, but took a point. And basically, by standing him up, he ends up hurting Assunção on the feet, and then eventually, on a desperation shot, getting an inverted triangle. But he should have lost to Assunção in his last fight. I mean, that was horrible reffing by, I think it was Keith Peterson. Fight before that, he beat Luis Smoka. Fight before that, lost to Adrian Yanez. Fight before that, lost to Marlon Vera. Both those fights, super gritty. He was in both those fights against decent competition. Both those guys are ranked now. He's 37 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach. So they're both roughly the same height and reach. You look at Daniel Marcos. He's coming in off that win over Saman Oliveira. Brutalized him, had good striking, looked very fast, good knees to the body. He got leg kicked in that fight pretty badly, very heavy on the lead leg. He's 14-0. He has great kicks, great front kicks. And this is a matchup, honestly, I was leaning both ways. But ultimately, I just think Davey Grant, even though he's very well-rounded, he's very durable. I just think Daniel Marcos, I haven't seen enough of him, but I think Daniel Marcos is a good enough striker, has good enough technical ability on the feet, where he'll be able to kind of land inside as Davey Grant's kind of plotting forward, throwing looping shots. And Grant has good kicks. I think Grant will be abusing the lead leg of Marcos because Marcos is very heavy on that lead leg. But I just think Marcos, he's undefeated. He's younger. He's 7 years younger. I think he has far better striking in terms of the speed and technical ability. Davey Grant, it's weird because it's effective, but it's kind of ugly. But I think Marcos is going to go out there, outstrike him. I think he's going to beat him up. I could see potentially Marcos getting a finish, but I'm going to go Daniel Marcos via decision. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card, and what a matchup this is. Lerone Murphy versus Josh Culibao. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. This is a banger on the card. Lerone Murphy in his last fight almost lost to Gabriel Santos. He almost lost that fight. You could make an argument that he lost the fight. Started to get tired, started to gas a bit. He won via split decision. It was an overall well-rounded performance, mixed in the striking, landed some good shots, used some grappling in this fight as well. Before that, he beat up Makwan Amirkhani. I'm so happy for that. I hate Makwan Amirkhani. Justice for Mike Grundy. But, Lerone Murphy, I think, is a bit overrated in terms of skill set. People are hyping him up as this next UK talent, and I think he's a bit overrated, and he's fighting a tough challenge in Josh Culibao. Josh Culibao coming in off that win over Melsik Bagdasaryan, where he landed a shot as he caught a kick. Melsik Bagdasaryan was kind of off balance. Josh Culibao just latched on a rear naked choke and got it done. This is an interesting matchup. Both guys, I feel like, are primarily strikers, but I think Lerone Murphy is has a little bit better offensive wrestling, even though his takedown defense himself is a little bit questionable, but I don't think Culibao is going to be looking for takedowns, even though he has good jiu-jitsu. You know, Culibao wants to strike. He's very fast. He has good kicks. But we've seen him kind of bullied a bit in the past by Sungwoo Choi in the third round, and Shaolin Norenbeke, even though he won that fight, Norenbeke was able to push him against the cage and control him there a bit. And I'm going to go with Lerone Murphy via decision. I just think he's a little bit more well-rounded. I think the offensive wrestling will, you know, help Murphy eke out a win here. But don't be surprised if Culibao gets this done, because I think he's a little bit faster on the feet. I think Murphy has a little bit more power, and I think it's going to be very close and competitive on the feet. But I think the difference is Murphy will mix in the takedowns, and I think that's what will win him this fight. And I also think he has more power. So I could see him landing some big shots and getting the respect of Culibao, and then mixing in some takedowns just to kind of mix it in, not even necessarily controlling him for long periods of time. I think Lerone Murphy gets it done in this fight. He's 32 years old, and a lot of people are hyping him up as a nice prospect from the UK. It's getting to a point where it's now or never. I know that sounds crazy, but he has to get through Josh Culibao if he wants to kind of make an impact in that featherweight division, you know, at 32 years old. But I'm interested in this fight. I think this is a hidden matchup on this card that's sneaky good, and I'm really looking forward to this matchup. But I'm going Lerone Murphy via decision. Just gets it done with his grappling and his striking. He has more power. I think both guys will eat some shots in this fight. I think Culibao will get busted up a bit because Murphy, you know, he lands a nice straight left hand, and he has good kicks as well. I'm going Lerone Murphy via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Jai Herbert versus Fair ZM. This is another fight. I mean, these guys are very similar, kind of long, lanky guys. Both 6'1". You have a 2-inch reach advantage for Herbert. Herbert's coming off a draw against Ludovic Klein in a fight that he was winning. But in the third round, I think it was, he kneed him to the groin twice. They took a point from him. So therefore, I can't remember. I think it was the second round Klein won. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, Jai Herbert clearly won one of the first 2 rounds. Klein barely eked out one of the first 2 rounds. Third round, Herbert was winning, kneed him in the groin twice, got a point deducted, ends up being a draw. Fight before that beat Kyle Nelson, that's kind of aged decently well. Fight before that almost finished Ilia Topuria. Now, Topuria did come up a weight class, but I don't know how that head kick from Jai Herbert didn't finish him. You look at Fair ZM, a lot of people thought he was going to kind of wash out of the UFC. Got beat by Terrence McKinney a year and a half ago. His last fight was against Michael Figlak. I think it was Michael Figlak is how you pronounce it. Beat him up pretty badly. Beat him up, outstruck him, outgrappled him, landed some good shots. I think he primarily outgrappled him in that fight. Outside of that, doesn't really have a lot of great wins. Luigi Vendramini, Jamie Malarkey's an okay win. He's a guy that is interesting prospect. He's only 26 years old, where Jai Herbert's 35 years old, and that always makes me worried when I see a massive age gap like that. But I think both guys are very similar styles. They're these long, lanky strikers. They're both decently well-rounded. Herbert, has kind of been exposed a bit with the grappling. Ludovic Klein was able to get him down a bit, but he's not like he's just getting taken down and has nothing to offer off his back. He finds ways back to his feet. He did it in his most recent fight against Ludovic Klein. Fair ZM, I could see him mixing in a lot of grappling in this fight because I do think Jai Herbert has the striking advantage. But ultimately, when I see Fair ZM strike, he leaves his chin out there a little bit too much. And I think Jai Herbert is going to catch that chin. I'm going to go Jai Herbert second round TKO. I just think ZM's going to be shooting into some takedowns. I don't think his offensive grappling is good enough to take Herbert down and control him on the ground for too long. And I think the way Fair ZM strikes sometimes, he really leaves his chin exposed, and he'll back up to the cage and kind of, be moving like this. And I just feel like he's open to big shots. Herbert has some decent power, has some decent head kicks. Look what he did to Ilia Topuria. I think Jai Herbert clips him with a big shot in the second round, puts him down, and finishes him via ground and pound. Jai Herbert, second round TKO. Moving up on the card, Andre Muniz versus Paul Craig. What a fun matchup this is. Paul Craig moving down the middleweight is very, very interesting. Muniz lost his last fight against Brendan Allen, which was like a short notice main event. They were supposed to fight in the co-main event, but then the main event got canceled last second. I think it was a Derek Lewis fight. Got elevated to the main event, loses to Brendan Allen, and gets submitted by Brendan Allen. Looked good on the feet, was arguably winning the fight, ends up on the ground. I can't remember if he got hurt or what. I can't remember. I didn't go back and watch that exact fight. I watched some other fights from him where he won. But Gets submitted by Brendan Allen. I'm not that high on Brendan Allen, and I knew it for a while. Muniz is very good from one position, and that's if he gets your back. And this matchup is so compelling because both these guys are submission guys. Paul Craig is just a submission machine. He's constantly looking for submissions. And it's interesting because Paul Craig is now moving down from light heavyweight. I'm curious how the weight cut goes for him. I'm curious how he looks on the scales. He's 35 years old, but Muniz is not much younger and 33 years old. Craig has a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So Muniz has a 78-inch reach to 76-inch reach for Craig. This is a matchup where I think Muniz has a striking advantage, but how significant is it? How significant is Muniz's striking advantage? And also, Paul Craig is just a savage, man. This guy will throw crazy shots, look for a takedown. He'll pull guard if he has to. And I just don't think Muniz has the power to get him out of there with the striking. And I think Paul Craig, no matter how this fight goes, I just think Paul Craig creates chaos and he just finds a submission. I mean, look at some of these wins he has. Before his last 2 losses, he lost to Johnny Walker, got finished holding on to a takedown attempt, lost to Volkan Ozdemir via decision. Listen to some of these wins before that. Nikita Krylov, triangle choke. Jamal Hill, KO, TKO, but it was really a submission along with that. Mauricio Shogun Hua, okay, that doesn't matter, but he also has a win over Magomed Ankalaev. He submitted Magomed Ankalaev. Paul Craig consistently finds submissions no matter where he is, whether he's off his back or he's on top. And I think Paul Craig's going to be the bigger fighter here. And I think Andre Muniz will have a striking advantage, but I think Paul Craig will find a position. Some way, somehow, he will get this fight to the ground. I'm going Paul Craig, 2nd round submission. I think what's going to happen is Paul Craig finds a way to get it to the ground, whether he pulls guard, eventually a scramble or some sort. Maybe he knocks him down. I don't know how it's going to end up getting there, but Paul Craig will find a way to get it there. And I think Andre Muniz isn't good off his back. He's like a turtle on his back. He has good jiu-jitsu, but only when he's on top and usually only when he's on the back. So I think Paul Craig finds a way to end up on top, on the ground, and I think Paul Craig will find a rear naked choke in the 2nd round. I think the 1st round will be fun. I think Muniz will be busting Paul Craig up a little bit on the feet, but I think Paul Craig eventually gets it to the ground. Maybe at the end of the 1st round, he gets it down, he pulls guard, he almost gets a triangle choke, but then 2nd round, I think he's going to end up in a better position, have more time, and find a rear naked choke, end up on Muniz's back, finishes him via rear naked choke, similar to what Brendan Allen did in his last fight. Moving up on the card, the featured fight of the main card, Nathaniel Wood versus Andre Touchy Fili. This is a fun fight. Andre Fili's been around forever. I think he's been in the UFC since 2013, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2012. It's crazy that he's still around. He's 33 years old. Coming off a split decision win over Bill Algeo. It was a questionable decision. Some people thought Bill Algeo got it done. He almost got a rear naked choke in the 3rd round, but wasn't able to get it. Or was it Bill Algeo? I'm trying to think for a second. There was a rear naked choke attempt in the 3rd round. It was Andre Fili almost submitting Bill Algeo. I was right initially. I was thinking about it for a second. Had it deep. Somehow Algeo was able to fight out of it. I don't know how. It was so deep. And then the fight goes to decision. Bill Algeo gets it done. He also landed some shots while Fili had his back. He was punching behind him, busting up Fili a bit. A fight before that, Fili got starched by Joe Anderson Brito. You look at Nathaniel Wood coming in on a 2-fight winning streak, beat Charles Jourdain, beat Charles Rosa. His last loss was 3 years ago to Casey Kenny. Not the greatest loss, but it was 3 years ago. He was 26 years old, still growing. He's still growing and getting better. Nathaniel Wood is actually a UK prospect that I'm very interested in because he's super well-rounded, has good combinations, has good kicks, mixes stuff in well, just mixes everything together well. He's like a very good mixed martial artist in terms of just mixing everything up. There's so many guys who either super wrestling heavy, super striking heavy, constantly just looking for a submission. Nathaniel Wood mixes everything in together very well. But Andre Fili's a well-rounded fighter as well. I mean, he has good striking, he has good jiu-jitsu, has good wrestling. But ultimately, I think Nathaniel Wood's just better. I think he's just better. I think he's younger. I think he's faster. I think he has more power. I'm going Nathaniel Wood via decision because Fili is tough to finish. I mean, Joe Anderson Brito has crazy power, brutalized him, but I don't think Nathaniel Wood has that type of power. So I think Nathaniel Wood will come out, chop the legs, land good body shots. He mixes in the body shots. He mixes in combinations when he needs to, has good cardio. I don't think he's going to fade at all. And I think he goes out there and beats Andre Fili probably 30-27. And I can't wait to see Nathaniel Wood get a step up in competition. I mean, this is a decent test here, considering who he's fought in the past. Charles Jourdain was a decent step up in competition over Charles Rosa. But I think Nathaniel Wood, he can be hit. He does leave himself to be hit a little bit. I think he even got clipped up a little bit in the Charles Rosa fight, if I'm not mistaken. But I just think he's improving. He's young. He's well-rounded, good striking, good grappling. And I think he goes out there. I think this is going to be primarily a striking match. I think you could see Philly start to lose, start to get the body chewed up with kicks, and eventually shoot in on some takedowns. But I think Nathaniel Wood gets it done via decision, probably a 30-27 decision win. Moving up the card to the co-main event, Molly McCann versus Julia Stolarenko. Ew, this is a horrible fight, guys. Why is Molly McCann in the co-main event? I know she's from the UK. I know she's riding the coattails of Paddy Pimblett's popularity. This is a garbage co-main event. I'm going to be honest. This is disgusting. I hate this co-main event. Molly McCann is bottom of the barrel UFC talent. She's been in the UFC for a long while. You might have not known that because she just kind of started to make her name in the last 2 years off of Paddy Pimblett. She lost her last fight, got absolutely destroyed by Erin Blanchfield and Kimura. She's 33 years old. You have Julian Stolarenko coming off a loss to Chelsea Chandler. The track star Chelsea Chandler beat her and destroyed her and finished her via ground and pound. The fight before that, her only win in the last 5 fights was against Jessica Rose Clark, who's an absolute bum herself. Losses to Alexis Davis, lost to Julia Avila, lost to Yana Santos 3 years ago. This is a matchup where the UFC just made it for Molly McCann to show up in the co-main event and get a big win here. I'm going Molly McCann first round KO. Molly McCann is one of the few fighters, even though she's not that good, she has very good power. And I think she's going to come out there. I think Julia Stolarenko is going to try to grapple a bit because Molly McCann can be exposed in the grappling. Her takedown defense isn't good. Her jiu-jitsu isn't that good. But I just think Molly McCann feeds off the crowd's energy, just marches out there and just lands on Julia Stolarenko. Julia Stolarenko's running for her life. And I think Molly McCann finds a TKO, drops her badly, finishes her with ground and pound. And she jumps out of the cage and starts screaming and yelling. And Molly McCann gets the win in the co-main event. I can't believe this is a co-main event. But I'm going Molly McCann. First round TKO. Moving up the card to the main event, Tom Aspinall versus Marcin Tybura. I'm going to be honest, I don't love this main event. I mean, this is essentially, a tune-up fight for Tom Aspinall. I'm going Tom Aspinall in this fight. Marcin Tybura, I mean, I don't even know what to call Marcin Tybura. He's just kind of like a lesser version of like a Marvin Vettori at heavyweight. Marcin Tybura is like decent, but he's just like mediocre everywhere at the same time. And Tom Aspinall, he's coming off that loss to Curtis Blades, which, I mean, really, is it a loss? He got injured so quickly. I don't know if you really want to, we really didn't find out who was the better fighter. Even if you want to say Curtis Blades caused the injury, we really don't know who was the better fighter that night. And I mean, I can't believe, what were they doing in the UK? They're wheeling Tom Aspinall out in the world's smallest chair. I'll never forget that as long as I live. But Tom Aspinall, very well-rounded fighter. Good hands, good speed, good power. Not one of these massive, 265-pound heavyweights. He's, more of a leaner heavyweight, like weighing in 245, 250. Very athletic. He's coming back off that knee injury. And you never know how guys are going to return off a knee injury. But, I just find it hard to believe that Tom Aspinall, even being a, regressed version of himself, or maybe, has some ring rust, I just don't think Marcin Tybura is going to be able to go out there and get it done. Marcin Tybura is coming in off a win over Blagoy Ivanov, didn't even finish him. Came in off a win over Alexander Romanov, won via majority decision, didn't even finish him. Lost to Alexander Volkov, who Tom Aspinall just absolutely murked 2 fights ago. Took him down immediately, submitted him via straight arm lock, straight arm bar, whatever you want to call it. Tom Aspinall is just too athletic, too fast, good power in his hands. Meanwhile, Marcin Tybura is just mediocre everywhere. He has okay striking, he has okay grappling, but I don't think he can out-grapple Tom Aspinall. I really don't. He got out-grappled by Alexander Romanov in the first round until Romanov gassed, and then Tybura was able to out-grapple him, but I just don't see Tybura out-grappling Tom Aspinall. I don't see Tybura out-striking Tom Aspinall. I don't see Tybura stuffing the takedowns of Tom Aspinall. I don't see Tybura, having a jiu-jitsu advantage against Tom Aspinall. And I think Tom Aspinall has more power as well and just has more variety in his offensive attack on the feet. I'm going Tom Aspinall second round TKO. I think Tom Aspinall is going to start off slow. He's going to have a little ring rust. He's going to be a little bit worried. He's going to be a little bit tense. But I think he's going to get kind of the timing and get the feel of the fight in the first round, land some good shots, really start to come on strong the last minute of the first round. And then I think in the second round, he's going to go for the kill. And I think Tom Aspinall with his really good, solid, fast striking for the heavyweight division. I just think he's going to look really good in this fight. And I think this is a showcase fight for Tom Aspinall. I think they're trying to build Tom Aspinall as a contender in the heavyweight division, which we may very well need it. If Jon Jones beats Stipe Miocic and then they both retire, Tom Aspinall is right in a title fight probably after that. So if he wins this fight against Marcin Tybura, it's kind of the slow build for Tom Aspinall coming back off an injury. I think this is a tune-up fight for him. I think he gets it done. I think he's going to clip up Marcin Tybura badly in the second round, land some good combinations, and then just finish him on the ground badly. I'm going to say flatline KO for Tom Aspinall. He's going to put him out cold with strikes, but also don't be surprised if Aspinall rocks him on the feet and then finds a submission. He has very good jiu-jitsu, but I don't see a way Marcin Tybura wins this fight. I just don't. He's just too mediocre everywhere. So I'm going Tom Aspinall, second round TKO. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who are you picking in the main event? Is there anyone picking Tybura? What do you guys think of the picks? Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.